the Georgia Guidestones. It's basically a new 10 Commandments from a secularist perspective. Yoko Ono has praised the Georgia Guidestones. She praised the inscribed messages as, quote, a stirring call to rational thinking, end quote. Yoko Ono is taking up art, singing. You know, only in a secular culture do you have the death of beauty. And that is nigh unto demonic. And that goes on for 3 minutes and 25 seconds. But Yoko Ono likes the inscribed message on the Georgia Guidestones and says it's a stirring call to rational thinking. I'm not sure I would call what she's doing here a stirring call to beautiful music or beautiful art or beauty at all. A little bit further. Yeah, the first Guidestone principle here. Maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. That is so typical of secular thinking. The secularists really do think that the earth would just be a lot better if there were a lot fewer people. Now, that is in direct contradiction to what the scripture teaches us. The scriptures teach us what? Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it. There are huge swaths of the earth where no people have lived. It's completely overgrown and overrun with dangerous wild animals. A lot of the earth has not been subdued and dominion has not been taken over it by humanity. And I think that the secularists, because they look at the earth and they look at the universe, the earth itself is a giant fluke. It's a giant accident. It's just a coincidence that there's a finely balanced ecosystem here on this planet, and there's a water cycle, and there's seasonal cycles, and everything works real well for us to be very comfortable here. And because they see that as pure coincidence, it could be very easily broken. And you see, as a Christian, I don't look at the earth like that. The earth is not this fragile thing that we can easily break. We're not to abuse the earth either. But to say that there should never be more than 500 million human beings, how many human beings are in the world right now? About 8 or 9 billion human beings exist on planet Earth right now. So you're talking about 1/20th, 19 out of 20 human beings. It would be better if they were gone, if they just weren't here. That is a secular way of thinking. Because if you do not believe the earth was designed by God for man to thrive and to live here and to be comfortable here, you're going to think that it'd be better if there were a lot fewer people. And certainly, someone like me, who has 10 kids, would be looked at as out of his mind. But I still believe what the Word of God teaches, that we're to be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it. Second one, guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. That's called eugenics, and that's Darwinism applied to the social sphere. It is one of the most abominable and horrific facts out there, but I believe it's because of the in utero fetal testing that they can do now through amniocentesis. They can tell if a child's got something like Down syndrome or a genetic disorder. I think it's 9 out of 10 babies diagnosed with Down syndrome are aborted. We've embraced this idea of eugenics, good breeding, that we need to encourage healthy people to reproduce and have kids, and we need to sterilize everybody else. It's a little known fact that there were forced sterilizations that took place in the United States. Many people do not know that Margaret Sanger, back in the 1930s, when she was publishing the American Birth Control Review, she published the papers in her periodical of Nazi eugenicists and American eugenicists too. So this idea of good breeding, of only allowing people who are healthy and aren't sick and don't have genetic disorders to reproduce, that's something that happened here. There are people alive in America today, I believe, who were forcibly sterilized by the United States government. Dirty little secret. But eugenics, the idea of only allowing certain people to have kids. There were quotations from Francis Crick and Jacques Monod a long time ago where they said that very kind of thing. They were saying that we envision a time when the government will determine what people have children and what children are born. That's what this is talking about. Guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. It's pretty amazing to hear that sort of thing just engraved in stone. But if you're an evolutionist, Darwinist, why not? Thirdly, unite humanity with a living new language. The reason that God had to confuse human languages is because men refused to spread out. They wanted to unite and all be in the same place, and they built the Tower of Babel, and God said, no, I told you to be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth, to spread out, take dominion over the earth, not to all stay in one place, to make a name for yourselves. And that's what Genesis 11 tells us. People were fascinated with themselves, and they wanted to make a tower that reached up to heaven. They wanted to make a name for themselves. The diversity of languages is something that God did as a judgment on humanity, so that we would do what we were supposed to do, which was to spread out and take dominion over everything in the earth. This has been tried before. There was a language called Esperanto. It's a language that I believe Joseph Stalin liked it and tried to learn it. It was a new language intended to be easy to learn and everything else, but it never really took hold anywhere. Fourth, rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. Now that's the first statement that is completely meaningless. What is tempered reason? What does that even mean? Tempered based on what? Rule passion. What's passion? What does that mean? Rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. I would maintain that the concept of reason does not have any meaning in a secular or atheist or naturalist materialist worldview. Reason is based on faith. Reason is based upon a whole slew of assumptions that cannot be justified in an atheistic outlook on life. What is commandment number 4 even saying? One person's guess is as good as anyone else's because it's completely arbitrary. It's not based on anything that's actually rooted in something that's fixed. Fifthly, protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts. What does fair mean? Well, commandments 1 and 2 maintain humanity under 500 million. Guide reproduction wisely. Obviously, these people would have no qualms whatsoever sterilizing the mentally handicapped and the infirm, aborting babies that are not wanted. Evidently, that's fair, and that's just. The words fair and just have no meaning objectively in an atheist outlook on life. In an atheist universe, those words do not have any meaning because there is no standard by which to call something unfair. There's no standard by which to say something is just or unjust. Sixth commandment, let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court. Someone should have told that to Adolf Hitler and to the Kaiser. Someone should have told that to imperialistic forms of communism as they entered other nations and tried to subdue them and brought about wars in Korea and Vietnam and Afghanistan. Hey guys, just resolve your external disputes in a world court. And I'm sure saying that to them, they'll say, here's how we resolve disputes, and they'll roll tanks in and blow you up. How naive is that? Not only that, but also disputes, resolve them in a court. That assumes that there's laws by which disputes could be resolved, that there's canons of justice and injustice by which something could be resolved or even talked about. But in the absence of a foundation for any of those terms to mean anything, what does it mean? Rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court. That's not going to work as long as you have ruthless people that are willing to be imperialistic and to expand their borders at gunpoint or at the tip of a nuclear warhead. Okay, that's not going to work. Not only that, but from a Christian perspective, the only way that the nations of the world will actually become peaceful is if they're regenerated, is if they're born again from heaven. If they come to know Jesus Christ and find their contentment in him, then human beings will be able to live peacefully. Not John Lennon's Imagine. I remember the music video for that on VH1 when I was a kid. Him and Yoko holding hands and walking. Imagine there's no heaven, no hell below us, above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one, yada, yada, yada. No religion too, no possessions, etc., etc. Doesn't work. Okay, 7. Avoid petty laws and useless officials. But you see, in a secular outlook on life, where people are not self-governing because they don't know God, they need the government to govern them. I think it was Ben Franklin who said, either be governed by God, or by God you'll be governed. Meaning, if you're not able to take care of yourself, if you don't have a sense of personal responsibility and self-control, and you're not going to kill people or do drugs or look at porn or ruin your marriage and your family or beat your kids or be a terrible, horrible person, you're going to have the government to take care of you. The government's going to have to take care of you. What I've taught my children, the principles that I live by, the biblical worldview, is when it comes to the civil government, basically my attitude is, just leave me alone. I don't need you. I don't need you to give me health care. I don't need you to feed me. I don't need you to clothe me. I don't need you to take care of me. I certainly don't need you to educate my kids. So just leave me alone. I'm perfectly fine without you. Only thing I need you to do is protect my life, protect my property, and make sure that the Christian church is able to carry on the work of ministry in a godly and peaceful fashion. That's all we need you to do. And I'm in favor of a head tax to do that. Every family in the country should pay $20 a year for government. That's all we need. We don't need to pay 30, 40, 50% of our salaries to the government for all these programs and everything else. People need to learn to take responsibility for themselves. They don't need universal health care. Health care is not a right. Health care is a privilege that you have to pay for. That's one of the reasons health care is good in the United States, is it's not universal. It's competitive. That's why people come here to have surgery and they don't go to North Korea because they don't have anything like that there. 8. Balance personal rights with social duties. Again, terms are being used there that don't have any meaning given the secular underpinnings of the Guidestones. Balance personal rights. What is a right? Who determines what our rights are? Well, could you list some rights? Obviously, the unborn don't have a right to life, so your understanding of what rights are real different from mine. What are personal rights and where do they come from? Social duties. What duties do we have? If I'm a bag of evolved pond slime, what duties do I have? None. They're completely arbitrary. No, you're supposed to do this. You're supposed to be nice. What does nice mean? You're supposed to love people. What does love mean? All these terms are left hanging in outer space, and nobody knows what they mean unless you have a Christian and biblical world and life view that roots them to divine revelation. If you don't have a fixed and unchanging body of divinely revealed truth, the words don't mean anything. What does wisely mean? What does tempered reason mean? What does fair laws and just courts? What does fair and just mean? Resolving external disputes based on what canons of justice and injustice? Petty laws and useless officials? What is a useful versus a useless official? Personal rights with social duties. What are rights and what are duties? These terms don't mean anything. In fact, they only mean something within the Christian context. Number 9. This is my favorite one. Prize truth, beauty, love, seeking harmony with the infinite. That is theobabble. That means nothing. What is truth? What's beauty? Is beauty someone throwing paint against a wall? Is beauty what we just listened to from Yoko? Is that beauty? A lot of people think it is. Or is beauty something like a Chopin nocturne? Or Mozart's Requiem? Or a Beethoven's Ninth Symphony? Or a second movement of the Seventh Symphony? Isn't that what beauty really is? Isn't beauty an objective thing? Based on something? What is love? Love is self-giving. Love does not seek its own. Love would never abort a baby. What does harmony mean? And then 10thly, finally, be not a cancer on the earth. Leave room for nature. Leave room for nature. That kind of bookends the 10 things there with maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. See, once again, if you have a secularist understanding of man, his origin, you're going to see the earth as this delicate, fragile thing that could so easily be upset and ruined, and that's why all this yammering about global warming and everything else. We've got to have fewer people, and we're going to destroy the world and everything else. Be not a cancer on the earth. That's the way the secular mindset thinks. That's why they don't have kids. That's why they hate children. They really do think that the world is just better without people in it, without human beings in it. That just kind of needs to be left alone. I mean, there needs to be very, very, very few people in it. But the scriptures tell us to be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, and subdue it. And that's the biblical way of looking at life and the world. Once again, I want to point out that Yoko Ono said it's a stirring call to rational thinking. Rationality doesn't make any sense at all unless God exists.